All right, Mr. Chairman, we are live.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're in the afternoon session. Oh my God, it's going to start already. Afternoon session of April 17th. Our next agenda item is an action item. This is a continued public hearing for variance 22-01 300 Cron Lane. The Thomases are here. Brian is here. Did you guys come to some type of agreement and understanding on both the easement and the rental? Where are we in this process?
Yes, thank you. Brian Parker, City Planner, City of McCall. Yes, I met with the Robertses this morning. I don't think we've reached an agreement. The takings analysis that I prepared with the City of McCall's legal staff was sent to Brian Oakey first thing this morning, and he stated that he had sent it along to you guys.
And we've been in meetings all morning. I'm frustrated by this, Brian. We don't get stuff that we can even review.
Well, in order to expedite it, I guess I'd be willing to take a few minutes and let us get caught up on this, Brian.
Yep.
Maybe you could give us an update on what changed from last week.
Yeah, so the findings of fact with the conditions of approval are the same, with the exception that it is now 6 months from today instead of 6 months from last week when their building permit approval would expire. Or when they have a 6 month window too.
So in the analysis of the takings, everything is pretty much answered no,
Right.
except for condition 10.
Yes.
Public pathway could be installed within the easement area in the future.
Which would, by its nature as a public pathway, deny the right to exclude others from that portion of their property.
The applicant would not be able to exclude the public from the portion of property within the easement area. The frontage of the property is currently subject to a 35-foot wide easement containing 1/2 Cron Lane. Easement is required to mitigate the impacts of development and achieve the purpose of the CC zone. So I guess where I'm coming from here is, as we discussed last time, I felt like this was a takings issue, and I was hoping that you would get together with the applicants and them verbally and on paper agree that those recommendations are okay. You're willing to live with the easement and with the rental. And I'm hearing that that's not the case. Is that correct? You want to please come to the mic? Somebody, whoever wants to answer that.
So one of our big questions right now was the thing about the pathway easement. So our understanding and what I look at in the paper, they were worried about the protection of the trees, et cetera. So then we were concerned about where would we put this easement? And my understanding from Brian in the past was that he was, the trees were a good thing. Today when I went in and said, so the thing is, then the only thing we could do is take the trees down. And he was like, yeah. So I got the feeling that those beautiful trees that are for our privacy and for beauty and everything else, it was almost like, well, if push comes to shove, the trees will have to go. So I didn't feel there wasn't, and he also, when we talked today, I didn't get the feeling it was a talk of coming together or trying to make something work. It was just, here's our findings. And so there was no other, so that's all we did this morning was just kind of, here's your options. And to me, there's no reason to ever take those trees out. We are basically willing to say, forget the whole project. Those are beautiful trees. I can't see why anybody would want to take those down for a pathway or anything. So I don't even see how to come together on that.
Well, and I
That's
appreciate
my-
your honesty, and I think, our concern is if we approve something that they're requiring you to do without compensating you for that, that is a takings. And eventually somebody's going to hold their feet to the fire and our feet to the fire for approving that concept. That's where I'm the most nervous about. I don't think that if you voluntarily said, yeah, we'll do an easement and we'll voluntarily do a deed restriction and we'll sign a piece of paper saying that, then we don't have an issue. But it sounds to me like you guys are going, wait a minute, we didn't agree to any of this. Is that correct?
That's true.
And this was all approved under your pre-existing building permit that expired.
Yes, all of it. And I brought that up again to Brian. I said, it doesn't make sense that one's saying this and one's saying that, and there's still that discrepancy. Because he said last week, it has changed, and Brian said it has not changed. And I'll be honest with you, it kind of frustrated me. We've been working on this for how long now? I really thought that last week when we came down here and were blindsided, you weren't even supposed to, you couldn't come down. And then I was thinking, I said to Les, you mean he just sent that paper to them this morning? It was like, how would you guys even be able to objectively look over it and say, well, you guys, I understand this, I don't understand this. I just feel like we're just getting rolled every time. And it's just frustrating to me, the whole process. It just doesn't seem professionally handled what we're doing. And I really, we really went down this morning thinking we were going to have a conversation with Brian and he was going to say, hey, I can see where your problem is here, or here's my suggestion here. It's just here. You read this and this is what's going on. And I don't know. I just really wonder, where is the city of McCall in the dynamics of its people and trying to make the whole city work together, and where's the forward looking, like I was saying, we were going to provide a rental. So I said to Brian, so we walk away from here, we don't build a building and we don't have another rental. How does that help the city of McCall at all? So to me, if you have some give and take and you say, hey, we can give here, you guys give here, let's do this. I don't get the feeling that's happening at all, except you all allowing us the 4-foot variance and whatever. I don't feel like the city has given us one inch.
Okay,
And that's how I feel. Nothing personal against Brian. That's
none
just
of this
the
is
way it
personal. We're all friends at the end of the day. My question is to Mr. Oki. So today, we are not really, are we actually approving the variance if we were to take this back to the original building permit? There would be no variance, correct? I don't know how far we can go with our,
Well, my understanding, and Mr. Parker from McCall can better answer the question, but my understanding is that the variance request is to relax the current ordinance requirements and issue the building permit. But there are still conditions, and there's some controversy over those conditions. The two are the accessory dwelling unit condition and the walking path condition. So those are the issues. I guess another option you could consider is just issuing the variance without those conditions in place. One thing that I would ask McCall to address when they do take the podium again is whether or not the pathway can be located in the existing 35-foot easement that is out in front, the 35-foot easement from center of the road, which wouldn't impact the trees or shouldn't impact the trees and wouldn't be on their private property. We have done those types of walking paths on existing roads where either a right-of-way or an easement exists, and we're not impacting private property that way. And if this could be solved simply by moving the pathway into that easement without causing some grief, that might be a path forward, but I don't want to speak for McCall on what they're trying to accomplish there. So,
And it is county road, isn't it?
okay, so Brian, I guess you're up next trying to figure out how to make this work for everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, so like Robert said, we met this morning. Does not appear that either side, at least between myself, my professional opinion on how this should be approved, if it should be approved at all, and what they are requesting. I don't believe we're going to reach an agreement on that front. That's how it goes some days. But as far as putting the pathway in the existing 35-foot easement area, it's entirely possible. We generally 70-foot collector roadway right-of-ways are generally sized to include snow storage, drainage, and a pathway on one side. I am not a roadway designer and I am not an engineer, so I can't say with any certainty that it can or cannot work. The applicant could provide some engineering, flesh that out a little further.
Do you know, just off the top of your head, how close the trees are to the edge of the easement?
I don't know exactly. I drove by it on my way home last week just to look at the property a little closer. The trees are right up at the edge of the roadway. I don't know exactly where the easement starts and stops.
We
Any
do,
more questions for Brian?
we do have the, what do they call them? The pathways within the road right away. I mean, is that
Share
a
the road?
possibility? Well,
Yeah,
no, it's
the
not.
pathways master plan calls for a separated pathway, but it's possible to, again, if properly engineered, do a safe.
The county is
shoulder.
allowing the, what are they called? Single track sidewalks, thank you.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
built one on Heinrich. So that might be a solution to that issue. Really quick.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you could close up on the trees to the road from the easement. Neil, do you have any questions?
I don't.
Well, I guess, Brian, where my rub is coming is that I think what you guys are asking for is a little too much from these people. They came in the beginning under the old permit process and everything was pretty good. These things weren't asked for at that time. Assumed that they were okay to proceed and go ahead and spend some money on it, and now they're getting held back. And I feel like honestly the best thing that we could do is honor that original building permit and those conditions and improve the process for the next one that comes along. But I don't think it's fair that we've pretty much stopped their whole development because of the pathways want and the short-term rental want. That was what changed from the original building permit. I don't know how to handle this. This is a different one. Whatever we do, we're gonna make a lot of people mad, so that's good.
My frustration goes back again, and Michelle's here this time. This is the fourth time we've requested that we get information the week prior to a meeting. I am unwilling to make decisions on stuff that we don't get until that day.
I apologize. I was also here a week prior discussing providing a takings analysis for the
And the takings analysis we got this morning after we started our meetings, and we got the revised conditional use permit information. You guys have a process where if I don't have stuff in for your meetings, 2 weeks in advance, we're not on the agenda. And that's what it's gonna start, is we're just not gonna put it on the agenda unless we have everything to go with it. Because I can't make good decisions
Fair
with no
enough.
information.
We should not be scheduling back-to-back meetings then.
Yeah,
That's the
my
case.
recommendation would be is if we continue it, we provide at least 2 weeks. The taking analysis was asked for after the meeting, and that actually takes some time, so I don't know that it's realistic to say we can complete that work, get it to you, make sure you have time to review it. So I think setting up realistic expectations in the future might be helpful.
That's great. And I think that's something that we can work on together. I mean, just a statement, we can't do it that fast, solves that issue.
Yeah. I think typically, it seems like most governing boards, it's a week in advance to have that information, so you have time to digest it. So we'll just make sure that
Absolutely.
when we continue it or when we're scheduling meetings that you have stuff.
I would very much appreciate that. I mean, we send out our agendas on Thursday. Normally, we just have the stuff then. So that's still far, if it is a lengthy document, I'd really like to have it the week prior to that. I mean, some of the simple stuff, yes, I can spend my weekends and go over this stuff. But when we get it on the same day, it's just a frustration. It makes it feel like our opinion's not important based upon the information we're receiving. And that's not acceptable to me.
Yeah, I think that can be resolved with realistic scheduling and gives us time to actually do the work and make sure your legal counsel has time to review it.
Absolutely.
In the meantime, I think these people deserve an answer today. They've been put off, and I think we need to figure out how we can make this work for them. So
Eldon,
I don't know.
your conversation, I mean, I think the single track sidewalk thing can work. And actually, the Roberts own across to the other side of that road.
You have a
So
picture of it?
I do. There is an easement that goes along that. The trees are right there. I mean, so technically they own to the other side of Crown
This is
Lake.
their property?
Yes. So I think, doing something that is more of a country type sidewalk would be appropriate out there. It's quite a ways from town, so it's not like you're on a concrete sidewalk. So I think removing the condition on the,
Well, all they're asking for is an easement. It doesn't say what kind of a path is gonna be through there. And it's, how wide is the easement?
The easement would be 14 feet was what I had put in the conditions of approval. That would facilitate a 10-foot with 2 feet of drainage on either side.
Is there 10 feet from the easement to those trees? Can you tell?
well, they own on the other side. So no, their easement is the existing road easement of 35 feet. I mean, they should be able to build within that 35-foot road easement.
So there should be 10 feet along there without taking,
Absolutely.
well, I don't know what that bush
That's
is.
a car.
Oh, that's a car. Okay.
That's on the road, but they own to the other side. That whole, looks like that whole strand along there owns to the other side of the road. So that, the easement, the 35-foot easement that's in place, I mean, we have 20-foot paved, so you still have 15 feet on the side of the pavement that should, a different type of sidewalk. However, it's more appropriate for county feel anyway. You're not gonna have curb gutter sidewalk out there.
No, that was never the intent. It would be a dirt surface.
So to the Thomases, then, are you guys willing to donate a 10-foot easement?
They don't need to, well,
You don't need to, but are you willing to if that would help this thing get through?
You need to come to the mic.
Yes, please.
need to clarify what are you asking an additional 10-foot?
No, instead of a 15-foot easement, it'd be a 10-foot easement so that they can't touch the trees that would have to be cut down.
But I'm still a little confused by your request, so I want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Sure.
Because the road is already a 35-foot easement with a 20-foot pavement. So there's 15 foot of existing easement without dedicating anything else.
Well, it would be, what is it from the center of the road over to their side?
But it's
35?
not center of the road because they own to the other side of the road. So it's not a standard where you own to the middle of the road. They own to
Okay,
the other side. So there should be an existing 35-foot.
so there's an
Easement
easement
there.
already for the road on your property. You realize that?
That's correct. And I believe that easement on the south side for Cron is 25 feet.
Then I think maybe what we need to do is be able to put into this that they will work with our road department to create a 10-foot pathway, no matter what that looks like. But it would be on the south side of the trees.
It wouldn't involve any additional easement though, correct?
I don't know what your current easement is. That's why we would have to resolve that with the road department.
I believe on the west side of our property, we have a 35-foot easement. On the south side, which is Cron, we have a 25-foot easement.
So 25-foot easement would not allow for that.
Nope.
And the 25-foot easement from the property line on the south side of Cron Lane goes probably up next to the trees.
The pavement
On the other
is
side.
right next to the,
Well,
From the
we're talking
property
south
pins.
side, which is right there.
From the property pins on the
Property.
south side of Cron Lane where our property is measuring over. I haven't measured, I know where it is on the east side and the west side of the property, and drawing a line across there, it's pretty close to the trees,
So you
the
own,
base of the trees.
you own across Cron Lane also?
Correct.
so he owns to
How much?
here.
How much land do you own there?
Well, we don't own across the lane. We own to the other side, basically. It's a foot off the edge of the south side of the pavement.
They own the easement. They own the ground underneath the easement that is
Oh,
Crown Lane.
okay, that's what I was
So it's
getting
just to the south
confused.
side of the
Yeah,
pavement.
yeah, yeah. I follow you.
And I don't know how wide that pavement is. Standard is 20 feet, but
I think 22, if I'm remembering, on Crown Lane.
I agree. We need to move forward on this. The deed restriction, you know, this is out in the county. I understand that we're trying to get local housing. I mean, we had discussed you guys going ahead and renting no less than 30 days. We do not want short-term rentals. So, I mean, if there was a restriction put on it, that
Ask them if they'd be willing to.
rental would be 30 days or more. No short-term rentals.
Well, I don't want a deed restriction.
Instead of doing a deed restriction, you're asking it as a condition of approval?
Correct.
So it's just no short-term rental.
Oh, that's totally, we have no problem with that at all.
So the language would say 30 days or longer.
Correct.
We're okay with
But we want to make sure we get that comment in the record, please.
That is
Um,
a condition of approval. It's,
Hate writing this stuff in the middle. Go ahead.
that. Well, so I believe the question is, or the language would be that the accessory
Dwelling unit?
dwelling unit would be, could only be, how would we say it?
any rental of the accessory dwelling unit would need to be 30 days or longer.
Okay.
You might rent it for the winter or shut it down in the summer or vice versa.
Okay.
No. You can't say
Well, it just,
A weekend or 3 days or,
Airbnb,
No.
right.
on an Airbnb.
yeah, has to be longer than 30 days.
we would agree to that language in approval.
Oh.
I'd really like to see it in writing.
Yeah,
So I
me
know
too.
exactly what I'm agreeing to, but
That's, yeah.
I think I follow what you're saying.
Brian, how do we do this? Because do we approve the variance then? We don't approve we still approve the variance only with different conditions of approval.
Correct.
Okay. Brian, go ahead.
Thank you. I would recommend keeping the deed restriction, not necessarily local housing, but just deed restriction prohibiting short-term rentals if that's the way you want to go, so that when the property sells, new owners are not subject to digging this up again in the future. It's just in their title documents and they are aware of that.
So that would be something on the deed that says no short-term rental of the accessory dwelling unit.
Yes.
So one of the concerns, I haven't read all of your deed restriction and what it states, but it does state if they're caught that you can take their property. Is that correct?
We can take their property.
Basically.
That's what we were told. Okay.
I think what you're talking about is actually creating a specific deed restriction that just says no short-term rentals. So it doesn't include the other provisions in terms of qualification for local employer and those types of things. So, so we could provide you a draft or your attorney can, but it's basically just gets recorded with the property, as Brian said, so that it doesn't get lost and it's easy to administer over time.
And I think that's a good call. So
Well,
some of
we-
this other stuff,
Could we just leave what they have in under, which one is it, 9?
no, because that's their deed restriction, and then you have to go through a whole process of how much it can appreciate each year, and then it has to be somebody that's living
Oh.
in the greater area of McCall. So there's a lot of stuff there that,
We are trying to write something.
number 4, something, a tree protection plan. So demonstrating how the trees remaining on the site will be protected from damage. Final engineering, we need that. We need the fire code. You got to do the FAA notice because it's within a mile of the airport. Reseeding with natural grasses, that's fine. So basically it's taking off number 9 and number 10. And then leaving in, so the 6-month variance. So you guys already have a builder lined up, you already have construction ready to go, then the October 17th deadline is not gonna be a problem to begin construction. Because you can't construct in 6 months. So this is just to
Pull
begin
a
construction, to pull a permit.
You're talking about this coming October.
Yes. So you just have to pull your permits before then. And that stops all of this stuff where you're under old code versus new code. So I haven't even looked at the takings analysis, to be honest with you, like, you know, so I think if we take off 9 and 10, then I think that I would be good with moving forward with that.
Is there a way, do you want to just modify number 9?
Yeah.
So that it's, instead of saying McCall local housing deed restriction or whatever it says, just a deed restriction with indicating that there's no short-term rentals.
Okay,
Because I think it is a requirement of the impact area code. And so since you're doing a variance, it'd be good to capture that in this condition of approval.
I think that's what I was trying to get to, Michelle, was just a general statement that this is not used for short-term rental.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
if you struck the word McCall local housing and replaced for the proposed or prohibited, and then added prohibiting short-term rentals.
it, because short-term is a term that may be used
That-
intermittently in
we have
different
a
areas.
definition in McCall Area of Impact Code for short-term rentals.
It says rentals that are less than 30 days, which is
Mhm.
consistent.
So on the deed, that should be easily found if someone wants to know what that restriction is.
And we can
Include that in the
copy
actual
that
deed
in the
restriction.
Okay. And I would be good with that.
I'm good with it. Agree with
So then we need to entertain a motion to approve the variance with those conditions either added or deleted, or
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the variance 22-01 300 Cron Lane while striking number 10 and amending number 9 and removing the McCall local housing verbiage so that number 9 now reads, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the applicant shall place a deed restriction for the proposed accessory dwelling unit stating that it will not allow any short-term rentals as per the McCall City Impact Code.
does that work for you guys?
I think so, except I haven't read that code, so.
Yeah,
It's probably as close as we're gonna get, so.
That sounds good.
Okay, do we get a second on that?
Do a second.
Been moved and seconded. You good, Brian? I think we're good.
Does that address the easement
It does,
also?
takes the easement off of it as far
Takes
as
it
the
clear out.
sidewalk. And hopefully we can come up with something and put it in the roadway someday. To do
Or
that.
we might just have to share the road on that spot.
Yep.
Okay, we got a motion second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you.
And when did we schedule for the,
May 1 at around 1:30, I think. Okay, during your regular meeting.
it's gonna leave early that day, but
Okay.
I was gonna leave early that day. We're headed for St. George. I will make sure I'm here for that.
Okay, great. And we'll invite Macaulay or planning and zoning.
Commissioner Mopin, do you want me to postpone?
No, that's fine. I'll work it out.
We'll try to do it as quickly as we can. We'll just
Oh, May 1 on our
check in with
original
a
meeting.
bunch of things.
Do you know, Michelle, is there quite a bit to go through, or is it just 2 or 3 different? Differences.
There's, at this
Might be a
point,
lot.
there's
Quite a substantial.
Is it first?
Can we move it to the
There's 3
8th?
ordinances, I think, but it covers multiple code sections, so we just want to make sure we have enough time to discuss.
We could do May 8th at 2:30. Do you know how long the discussion with Idaho Power is going to take, Commissioner Mopin?
That won't be very long. I think maybe a half hour.
2:30 on May 8th then,
Whatever
We
you
do
guys,
that instead.
or we'll set it for a special meeting.
Assume I'm coming down here on Mondays.
so you're gonna be back by that time? Okay.
Maybe we have-
Okay?
We'll figure it out.
And then will you get us like a kind of a surmised list of the differences?
Yeah, we'll get you
And-
something at least a week in advance.
Well,
longer.
or even sooner if possible?
Yeah, because
Okay.
it's dense and kind of a lot. And we'll create basically a summary sheet in front, so you can peruse that, and then if you want to dig in, you can.
Okay.
Is this the code updates you've done since
Yeah.
when?
Basically in the last year, so we have some differences between the city of McCall and Valley County for the impact area. So we want to go ahead and go back through what the differences are and see if the county has any interest in updating those or not. And we probably won't be looking forward. We're just going to be looking back at kind of that we hit pause for a year. So we want to make sure that everybody's up to speed. And also our commission, because now they're administering two different codes for the city and the impact area. So it's a good review for them as well. So we'll invite them too.
Aren't we still on pause? Because we don't have an agreement between the county and the city
Yeah, I
yet.
think
so-
we're working towards that.
Working on it.
Yeah, and we're not, at this point, I said before we do any future code amendments, we'll do work sessions with both the city council and you guys.
Really appreciate that.
That's sort of why we want to get this going though, just so we don't pause for too long, right? In the sense of we want to keep moving forward on some
And we
initiatives.
do too.
Yeah, we're
We do
just,
too.
and a lot of times what we find in, we do annual code cleanups, and that's kind of what they are. They're really just things that we find aren't working, don't make any sense anymore, and so we want to kind of keep that stuff going, so we're not just kind of locked in.
Sure.
So if, on some of your codes that you've done over the time, I mean, when you get pushback from the public on some of the codes that you guys have done, have you realized that, okay, that's wasn't a great idea? You go ahead and delete those and make them go away? I mean, because you're going to run into stuff like that.
Yeah, so basically what we do is, with everything, it can always be changed. A lot of times when we propose certain policy or programs, we say, okay, council, we're gonna come back a year. So our short-term rentals is a good example. We're not even a year into it, and we're administering kind of a whole new process, a permitting process, as well as an inspection process. So we told the council, we'll come back in a year, evaluate, let you know how things are going, and then they could decide if they want to make any changes to kind of what they have in place. So yeah, we often do go back and revisit. Some things we don't go back because they're really kind of not an issue. Some codes just, you're never going to get an agreement, and not everyone's going to love every code all the time, as you guys know. So some of those are just, is it supported by the comprehensive plan, and does it make sense, and is it furthering certain goals and that kind of thing. So yeah, and then anytime we do like code updates, we provide that analysis too, to say like, okay, is this code or policy supported by the comp plan, and what are the impacts and that sort of thing.
Michelle, on your short-term rentals, you guys are, I'm assuming registering them, are you charging a fee?
Yeah, so
You mind me asking what
short-term
that is?
rentals cross over from the stuff that we deal with you guys on a little bit, because our clerk's department administers, we basically separated it out from a business license to a short-term rental permit, and that's administered through a different title that you guys don't see. It's just for the city limits. So the clerk's department does that, so they are charging a fee. And when we bring that, we can bring that supplemental information if you're just interested in it. And so they're administering it. We're working with McCall Fire. They hired an inspector, so there's an inspection process that's happening. And then there's the code section itself that's administered through planning and zoning.
Well, one of the things, and I would like to see what your fees are, because we kind of been talking about those here too, but one of the other things I think we need to start getting into code, and the fire guys know this, is a gas alarm. An alarm in your house that smells propane, it goes off. There's smoke detectors, there's carbon monoxide, but there isn't any gas. And so we've been working on trying to figure out a way to get that into some ordinance as well, that those, if you have a propane furnace, you got to have one of those. And you can get them for free right now from the fire departments. They have them, so.
We'll provide a lot of the information about the short-term rental, because I think it might just be interesting too to see. There's a checklist that the fire inspector brings to that inspection. And so that can change over time, and that's just adopted by the council by resolution, so we don't have to change
Oh,
the
okay.
code every time. So if we want to update and add something, it's a little easier than going through the whole code amendment process. So
Good.
that's the way we kind of broke that out.
All right, well, I know things didn't go quite your way today, Brian, but we met about halfway, I think. And we've learned a little bit from each other, and I think it's pretty important that you get it to us in a timelier fashion. That'd be great.
All right.
All right, you guys have a great day.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I hate to kick you guys out of the room, but we're going into an executive session. In fact, we've got 2 in a row. So I need a motion to go into executive per Idaho Code 2061F.
I'll make a motion to go into Idaho Code
2061F.
2061F for executive session.
Second,
Move to second by roll call, please.
Thompson, aye.
Bob and I.
Hasbrook, aye. What's that, Joey?
Want the door closed?
Yes, please, thank you. So Doug, put us in at 1:40, whenever you get us off.